everybody on this panel has written books. If the AI is consuming and being trained on material that you've written, how could you expect them to be compensated for that? Is it the purchase of one book to be fed into the model for the training, or since it's being, then is informing what the model puts out? But also how do you measure that? Because it could be in very subtle ways. It's almost like, how did my second grade teacher influence my thinking versus.
And that hits the nail on the head, right? When you think about fair use, I could go out and buy 10 books about AI. I could read them, consume them, synthesize it in my head, and then hang out my little sign and start selling myself as an AI advisor based on the work of 10 other people. But I've synthesized it, and I'm now using that information to derive revenue. It's essentially what the AI companies are doing, is they're taking data, they're synthesizing it all, and then using that to derive revenue in whatever way they do that. So there is an argument that says that it's essentially like a book. The only thing is, with a book, even as if I read 10 books and I go out as an advisor, I might be influencing 10 or 20 or 30 companies that I work with. AI is influencing millions right on the thing. So, and I want to preface this by the way in which this conversation came up is that I'm co-founder of an organization here in Australia that's building Australia's true foundational large language model. And we don't believe that just going out and scraping everything that we can possibly get is in the national interest, right? If there's, I don't know how you can have a sovereign model where your sovereign creatives are not made whole. And so we've been working to figure out how we compensate creatives, be they poets, authors, songwriters, reporters, whoever they are, right? Academics. How do we recompense that? And the model ultimately that we've kind of landed on, and we're working with a government agency around this, is that, yes, up front we might say, look, here's some millions of dollars, that's for the work that you've done. But as that model scales, as that business scales and the revenue scales, then should not the content that helped build it also increase in value? And so, there's a case that says, well, you take a percentage of revenue every year, and that goes back to those creatives to make them whole, and their work over time becomes more valuable. But you've got to be in a position where you're not chasing greed and, to Jeff's point, ballistically stupid valuations. You've got to take a lens that says this is what's right. And that's going to be different in every country and in every situation.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting point. It raises a few things, and you mentioned this, right? So if you read a book or you consume some information, how do you quantify what impact that has had? So what impact a certain person's creative has had on another? And then of course it gets to the point of, is there any original thought? How far do we want to go back? Do we start, searching for Plato's descendants to compensate?
Well, no songwriter ever wrote a song never having listened to any music.
Correct.
Every songwriter had listened to some form of music. They'd been influenced,
Exactly.
That's still.
And I guess that's my point too. And